On the pages today, a review of the country's economic performance for the October to December 2015 period. Growth of 0.6% achieved.
This performance represented the fourth consecutive quarter of growth.
We also turn our attention to the education sector and look at how the ministry is ensuring that learning takes place among students with dyslexia. Hello, I'm Adrian Atkinson, and the information continues on the other side of this break.
This is the Aedes aegypti mosquito that spreads the Zika, chikungunya, and dengue viruses. Protect yourself from the bite of this mosquito. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Good day, I'm Andrea Chizom and this is your JIS News for Thursday, March 17. Government will be introducing legislated gender quotas to address the lack of proportional representation of women in Parliament.
And also underrepresentation in local authorities and other positions of leadership to increase the participation by women in the relevant branches of governance, political decision-making, and socio-economic organizations.
The Gender Affairs Minister says this is part of temporary special measures which will be adopted to accelerate equality between men and women. In addition, there will be revision and amendments to existing legislation which in some instances are archaic and discriminatory.
To make them gender neutral and compliant with the language and guiding principles in the National Policy for Gender Equality, as well as commitments to regional and international agreements.
These measures are among 8 key priorities for action, which Minister Grange says will be rolled out during the short term. She made the announcement during an International Women's Day Business Forum held on Wednesday in Kingston. The twinning of industry and commerce with the agriculture portfolio has created a set of logistical centers in government to drive growth. That's according to the minister at the helm of the twinned ministries, Carl Samuda. He asserts that this move is the right fit for agro-industrial development and will enable the best use of the facilities and agencies to guarantee production standards and competitiveness. He says the ministry will be moving speedily to address requests by the private sector and business community to get business development and growth moving.
I will run an open door ministry. Anyone wishing to talk to me about a problem just have to come into my ministry. I'll make myself available to deal with the captains of industry, all persons involved from the micro to the large business sector, to ensure that together we can move this country economically ahead.
Minister Samuda says the administration will also be working to ensure the availability and access to lower interest rates for the business sector, greater use of technology, and linkages between the various industries. He was speaking on March 10 at the launch of Expo Jamaica 2016. Meanwhile, 350 exhibitors have already registered to participate in the 43rd staging of the biennial Expo Jamaica Trade Show. The exposition will be held at the National Arena and National Indoor Sports Centre in Kingston from April 14 to 17. It's expected to attract 450 local and overseas buyers and more than 15,000 patrons.
Expo Jamaica 2016 will be one for the record. Our blueprint for reinvention has promised an event that will surpass all expectations.
New features this year include the Jamaica Tourist Board's Experience Jamaica display, a Rada Farmers Market, and Caribbean Brawlers Food Court and live streaming. The 4-day event is being jointly staged by the Jamaica Manufacturers Association, Jamaica Exporters Association, and Jamaica Promotions Corporation under the theme, The Business Hub of the Caribbean. Schools in the eastern parishes of Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, and St. Thomas are to benefit from earthquake drills as part of the DCH Drop Cover Hold campaign. It's being organized by the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management (ODPEM) in partnership with the Ministry of Education.
The Drop Cover Hold campaign is not just for public education, but it's to ensure that all our stakeholders, particularly staff and students, are able to respond in the event of such an event.
Approximately 300 primary and high schools are expected to participate in the exercises. ODPEM training manager Cheryl Nichols says the drills will start at 11:08 a.m. on March 22 and 23.
We have created a scenario that is a magnitude 7.1 earthquake with its epicenter in Trinityville, St. Thomas. We are aware that one of our more active sites fault line exists within the eastern tip of the island. That's the Plantain Garden fault line, and therefore it's a reality that could become something we have to deal with.
Ms. Nichols and Assistant Superintendent Minto were speaking at a GIS think tank on Tuesday. Schools within the targeted parishes that are interested may visit the ODPEM's website at odpem.org to fill out a registration form. The activities form part of ODPEM's renewed focus to target disaster preparedness messages at the youth. And finally, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has sent out best wishes to the thousands of students taking the Grade 6 Achievement Test today and tomorrow. More than 39,000 students were registered to sit the Mathematics and Social Studies tests today. Tomorrow, they will tackle language arts, communication tasks, and science. Mr. Holness entertained several GSAT candidates at the office of the Prime Minister yesterday as he sought to allay any fear or anxiety that they may have regarding the exams. The Prime Minister is also urging parents to support their children as they undergo what can sometimes be a very stressful examination exercise. And that's it for GIS News today. Amandra Chisholm, thank you for watching.
We want a productive Jamaica. We are not productive Jamaicans. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity is the way to go for all us Jamaicans. Small business, big business, old and young, we are tell every woman and man. We want growth and prosperity for a better nation with a building plan. So we can build our product and sell our product and put more money in our hand. Our economy can rise to a level and build a better nation. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity.
Productivity, Pathway to Prosperity. A message brought to you by the Jamaica Productivity Center, a department of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
Among the areas that contributed to economic growth in the last quarter of 2015 were manufacturing, construction, transport, storage and communication. The Planning Institute of Jamaica gave us the breakdown recently. Here are the details.
The Jamaican economy has been constantly progressing. The latest evidence, the Planning Institute of Jamaica PIOJ's quarterly report, which showed that the economy grew by 0.6% in the October to December 2015 period.
This performance represented the fourth consecutive quarter of growth and largely reflected higher value added in both the services and goods producing industries.
Let's take a more detailed look at the industries, beginning with goods producing. There was a 0.4% increase over the corresponding period in 2014. This was largely driven by manufacturing, which was up by 3.7%, thanks to food, beverage, tobacco, and other subsectors. Construction also grew by 0.7% due to an increase in civil engineering activities and
an increase in building construction activities due largely to increased housing starts, which were up by 24.8%, and the build-out of office space to facilitate expansion of the BPO industry, as well as increased hotel construction.
The drought, however, took its toll on the agriculture, forestry and fishing sectors, resulting in a decline of 3.3%. And due to a fall-off in bauxite production, mining and quarrying was down by 2.3%.
The services industry grew by 0.6%, reflecting increased real value added in all industries except producers of government services.
Electricity and water grew by 5%.
And this reflected a higher electricity consumption, which outweighed a decline in water production.
Transport, storage and communication was up 0.6%.
This performance was due to an expansion in the communications segment of the industry due to increased competition and network expansion during the quarter.
There was also an increase in financial and insurance services as well as the wholesale and retail trade. For the hotels and restaurant sector, there was a 1.2% increase in activities.
This was influenced by an estimated 1% growth in stopover visitor arrivals due to increased visitors from the United States of America and European markets due to an increase in flight frequency and the introduction of new flights.
Armed with that information from the PIOJ, the government, though encouraged, wants more accelerated growth levels.
We have averaged 1% growth for the past 25 years. We have to get out of it now, and this is my message to you, because if not now, when? Global oil prices are at an all-time low. Interest rates are trending down. Inflation rate in Jamaica, cost of living, is at one of the lowest in a long, long time record. It's now or never.
And so the new finance minister has indicated that his ministry will be working to secure investments in Jamaica by collaborating with the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation out of the office of the Prime Minister.
Growth is not a magical phenomenon. Growth is not a wizard in the bank. Growth is something that everybody has to embrace. And a productive workforce and a productive public sector are part of that growth plan.
The public sector modernization program is therefore critical to the process.
I'll be working alongside people in the public service to see if we can nudge things a little faster and to see if we can meet the challenges.
The government of Jamaica, recognizing the gains, working towards the future, the end game, high levels of growth in the Jamaican economy.
Parents, make sure the children get immunized. Hear this. Immunization, it is a must. This is not a joke thing, this you can trust. It is required by law for entry to nursery, to daycare and to schools. Listen up, it is necessary to prevent diseases such as the measles, the poliomyelitis, the lockjaw and the whooping cough. Immunize your kids, keep them healthy, keep them strong. Prevent deadly diseases such as mumps, rubella and diphtheria. Immunize your child today. Immunization, a key to good health.
A message from the Ministry of Health and PAHO.
There's a long-distance relay that's still on. Many have taken it this far, each leg as important as the next, each challenge faced with determination. Now it's your turn to take the baton. People living with HIV and AIDS and those who are vulnerable need your commitment. It stands in the way of a better quality of life for all of us and our self-respect as a region. It stands in the way of victory in the fight to stop the spread of HIV. Reject stigma and discrimination. Get us to zero.
Among the Education Ministry's strategies to cater to the needs of students with dyslexia are the training of teachers, continued workshops and special accommodations for students during national exams. Acting Assistant Chief Education Officer Ann Newman shares more with us.
When we hear the word dyslexia, what comes to mind? Reading what's not on the paper? Mispronouncing words? Well, that's true, because dyslexia is a disability which involves difficulty in learning to read or interpret words, letters, or symbols. We have students with this disability in our education system, and they are being supported by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Let me welcome Acting Assistant Chief Education Officer in the Special Education Unit in the Ministry, Mrs. Ann Newman, who will share with us the Ministry's approach to helping these students. Welcome.
Thank you, Carrie.
All right, so many persons have the perception that persons or students with dyslexia are dunce? Please clear that up for us.
Well, we never, in educational circles, we don't use the word dunce. We
Right.
should try not to, because persons who have specific learning disabilities are persons who are of average or above average intelligence. That means they have the capacity to learn, problem solve, and do whatever they want to do in terms of a profession. But they have a processing disorder. And dyslexia speaks to a processing disorder that affects their ability to interact with written print and the spoken word.
Okay, so how can we actually help these students?
Okay, the first step in special ed is always diagnosis. So once students are not doing well in the learning of reading, then they ought to be referred for an assessment. And once the assessment is done, it will show what the child's strengths and weaknesses are. We do remediation by using their strengths to teach them, as well as remediating their weaknesses. So the assessment report will usually give recommendations and strategies that would best suit that child.
Okay, so what's their learning style like?
Okay, there's no one size fit all.
As is the norm.
Everybody has their own learning style. Some of us tend to be auditory learners, some visual, some kinesthetic. So we recommend that in a mixed class, teachers use a variety or a combination of those strategies. Now, when you have dyslexia, very often you're not a very good visual learner, but you may be a good auditory learner.
Wow, okay.
So what we would do to compensate for that is we would have other persons read for them or use programs. These days with the technology, there are lots of apps that can be downloaded, some of them free of cost, that help to read for students.
Or is there a policy that guides schools as to how to treat these students and other special needs, for example, students?
Yes, our policy, our special education policy is still in the draft stage. At this moment, the Education System Transformation Project is visiting regions and doing sensitizations with stakeholders before it is sent to cabinet. So it's in an advanced state, but we have guidelines that inform what we do in the system. And our teachers are exposed to these guidelines. One of the things that we do for a person who may be dyslexic is once they have been diagnosed officially, that person can qualify for what we call accommodation, extra time, sometimes a reader, in our national examinations. And schools that do the national exams know this, and they apply to the student assessment unit for this accommodation. And we also, from the special education unit, and we also have special needs coordinators out in the main schools, facilitate workshops, staff development for teachers who need this sort of support. We're always available.
Okay.
And Kerry, it may be useful for us to share a few tips with you for parents or teachers who are dealing with students who have dyslexia. Dyslexia, 3 of the manifestations of dyslexia are usually reversals, substitutions. And reversal, I mean that they reverse words or letters. They substitute.
P, or BD, sort of like that, seeing B as D and
exactly,
so on?
Exactly. Or saw for was.
Okay.
Those sort of examples. So they have reversals or they substitute some words. When they can't fully pronounce it, they put in a word that has a similar configuration, or they are just very disfluent in reading. And for them, it becomes a very frustrating exercise to learn to read. So a lot of students who are dyslexic become very frustrated with this process, this critical process. So some of the tips that we use with teachers, we say to teachers in a classroom, if you realize that you have a struggling reader in your class, never put them on the spot. Never ask them to read aloud in front of others, because it's just going to heighten the anxiety. But what you can do is do more peer reading with that student. So if you have a good reader, and especially if they're friends, and you notice I'm putting it in quotation because you don't want always to have friends together. But if you have a good reader in your class, you can assign that person to help read for that child so they're not always heard audibly. And then you can play a lot of games, because remember, the person is of average or above average intelligence. So if you converse with them, you would never detect that they have a learning difficulty. So do more things, use their strengths, so their auditory skills, conversing with them, and having them access information through tapes and that sort of thing is very helpful for a child who may be having a learning disability. And of course, we're in the technology age, using the technology as I earlier suggested.
Oh, those apps and so on that you
Yes,
mentioned.
the apps, yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you so much. Important tips for us to use. And when I say us, I mean parents, teachers, friends. Thank you again, Mrs. Newman.
You're most welcome.
It
It was my pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Now make diseases spread. Wash your hands with soap and water instead. Wash them regular or use a hand sanitizer. Make sure the germs them dead. Touching your eyes or your mouth or your nose. Wash your hands before you do things like those. After you use the bathroom before preparing food, come on, wash your hand them clean.
The second staging of the Kingston Animation Conference and Film Festival was held last weekend. It was an opportunity for animators to showcase their talents and forge business relationships. Those in attendance had great reviews of the event.
Very inspiring and a lot of energy, a lot of creativity. Just the hunger is clear. Yeah, it's just great to see so many people who are ready to work and just need the tools. And if we can help them with that, then it's a win-win for everybody.
It's a great feeling to be involved in Kingston. I must say that Kingston is a result of me landing my job here at GIS.
This is an opportunity for us to find additional trainers, to find additional partners, to set up student-to-student exchanges in the process of building a Jamaican and Caribbean industry.
This is Romain Virgo. I'm here appeal to all of the youths them to just stay away from crime and violence. We know the temptation, the money, the fast life. People say them rate you. But that will only take you nowhere. If you stay in school and focus, then you can achieve anything. Be your own leader. A gang is a dead end.
A message from the Ministry of National Security.
Up next, stakeholders discuss security measures for tertiary students.
To be safe and secure in a space facilitating me reading for my degree should be a responsibility of the administrators of that space, I thought. Or should it? Should it solely be their responsibility to protect me, or should I also be my own protector?
Some good questions there raised by one tertiary student as he, along with other colleagues and stakeholders from the education and security sectors, discussed the critical issue of security measures for students pursuing higher education. The forum was hosted by the UWI's Association of Caribbean Higher Education Administrators, ACHIA.
It is timely for us to look and for us to share with everyone and for us to get all other tertiary institutions, if they didn't have the security measures in place, to help them, to encourage them to, to put some systems in place.
What are some of the security challenges faced by these students?
A false sense of security among our students. Poor reporting mechanisms in the student services offered by the administration. Poor cultural orientation of newly hired security guards. And an absence of a national agency to monitor security in the tertiary space.
With that said, the authorities got to sharing the security measures already in place and the fact that each student should be aware of these measures.
We have something called a follow and search throughout the entire campus. Throughout the entire campus, we have what we call a follow and search.
that deals with our CCTV cameras. We can follow you anywhere on our campus. Anywhere on our campus, we could follow you.
There are other strategies employed by these institutions to ensure safety. Police are stationed on campus who do regular patrols. Security guards are also employed to keep watch. They are often seen at specific locations like the entrance and exit of the campus. Regular security workshops are hosted to keep students aware of changes in the security system used by the institution, and best practices are being gained from more neighboring tertiary institutions.
Have you ever seen or heard, and those who are trained and the forces, when a complainant comes to the station to report, he or she says, "Officer, I did not see where the man come from. He just showed up out of nowhere." No. You perhaps walked past him or drove past him. It is because we have not trained our minds to observe little things. Students should be encouraged to walk in groups, especially at nights. Be conscious of their surroundings at all times. Don't stick to a particular routine. They leave home the same time every morning. They go to the same bus stop. They take the same bus at the same time. The same way how they do that, somebody is monitoring their pattern. Utilize our official public transportation system. Too many of our students are taking the robots, the shuttle buses, and the other vehicles that are endangering their lives and the lives of others of us in the public.
This is Mixwell Production.
If they're on an airplane, they put up the plane. If they're at a hotel, they put it up. Not at home, I'm at a hotel enjoying the weekend. And you are just exposing yourself to somebody who you have in your contact who perhaps is not as legitimate like those of us.
Safety in our schools is important and necessary to support academic success. It takes the work of the university and the awareness of these students to create and maintain a safe learning environment.
We need to stop competing and start putting ideas together and essentially attacking security in the best way possible.
Some marina, you know. Yeah?
Yeah, man, I have the pocket 6,000.
6,000.
Yeah.
How much I want?
Yeah, man, 2 days I want.
Man, no one else. Yeah, man. Same. Alright,
what one, cat?
You don't know, I sit downtown the other day there. Oh. I want to come brethren them man, we buy and sell marina. Yeah. One of them I sell a 6-pack for $1,000 and the next one I sell one for $200.
So where buy?
Buy 5 of them for $1,000. Think them can't rob me.
So Uncle Fancy is the same $1,000 you would spend to get the 6? Seriously?
Tell them again now, my math brains.
Math count.
Math count.
Sponsored by the Ministry of Education.
You're on the last page of Jamaica Magazine, and that means this edition is finished. But don't worry, we put out a publication every day. That means another one will be on tomorrow. Until then, connect to our website, jis.gov.jm or YouTube channel for more interesting features and information. Also send your feedback to jamaicamagazine@jis.gov.jm or tweet at JIS News. On behalf of the entire production crew, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thank you for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.